Good evening, everyone. This is the Puyallup City Council meeting for July 16th, 2024. It is called to order. Will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. With that, could the clerk please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Gilliam,
Present.
Councilmember Whitting,
Present.
Councilmember Dorr,
Present.
Councilmember Adler,
Present.
Councilmember Johnson,
Present.
Deputy Mayor King,
Present.
Mayor Castema.
Present. With that, I'd like to take this opportunity, as we do at the beginning of every council meeting, and acknowledge any of the youth that we have in the audience. And today I see a lot of young people. I see several people from the Scouts, and maybe there are some other youth from other areas too. And we do this because we want to make special acknowledgement because you're the future of the city and you are the future leaders of this community. And we just want to welcome you. But with that, I would like to have the councils come forward, or representatives of them. If you could come forward, because I see all the different Scouts that we have here. And if you could come forward and just tell us a little bit about yourself, I would appreciate that. There's a microphone right here, please. And I have to say, this is a special treat. The council members know that I have this special aversion to litter in this community. My wife and I go out and we're very fond of picking up litter and making sure that this community is clean. And I happened to be down at Riverwalk. It was probably a month and a half ago. And I saw a Scout troop down there picking up litter. And it really is something that touched my heart. And the Scouts decided that they would come here today and give a very short presentation on what they were doing and what the overall goal of that program is. So if you would like to go ahead and speak, please do.
Hello, my name is Chris. I'm the Scoutmaster of Troop 516 of South Hill. We're meet up off of 122nd, but up on the hill. We're a troop-led, boy-led troop. And today you have a couple of our youth and their families that have been very involved in our community in all kinds of aspects. And at this time we have Max, I believe, has a board for you and some words for you.
And it was Max, correct?
Yep.
And Max, what's your last name?
Major.
And what school do you go to?
I'm homeschooled.
Homeschool? Okay, excellent. Proceed.
I wear socks like Scouts. They always come prepared. Hello, everyone. My name is Max Major, and I am one of the Scouts the mayor ran into at Veterans Park while we were picking up garbage. You might see us selling popcorn to raise money for summer camp or even out on the trail while hiking. But a big part of what we do is find ways to help our community. Each rank we earn involves a service project like the one the mayor found us doing. Our slogan is to do a good turn daily. That's one every 24 hours, or 365 days a year. Good turns don't have to be big service projects like this one was. They're a reminder to do something kind for each other each day without expecting anything in return. Thanks for inviting us here tonight to share a little bit of what Scouts do for our community.
Well, thank you.
This is Tucker Thompson. He's one of the other boys that was there, and he would like to talk a little bit about the Trash to Trash too. Trash to Trash is an event that the Scout as a troop does occasionally every first Saturday of a month that I forget. May. I know. Okay, this first Saturday of May, This was set up, this was our first year doing it. Amy Major, Max's mom set up the Trash to Trash for us and we attended. It's actually part of a worldwide project that they do called From the Messengers of Peace. And they're trying to clean up areas around the world. So they have a poster board that they stuck in front here. If you guys can see that, tells about how much trash they pick up throughout the world. So this is one of many events that Scouts do. We also did what's the other one we did in May with the post office?
Stamp Out Hunger.
Stamp Out Hunger. There you go. Talk about that.
For Stamp Out Hunger, we went to the post office and we would, when trucks would arrive, we'd get food from the trucks and we carry them into boxes, which would go into like trucks in the back of the place.
The semi truck and then the food bank picks
Semi-truck.
up the food and they deliver it to people. It's just one of the many events. We also put the flags around the Sunrise neighborhood for Memorial Day and Veterans Day and lots of other various activities. There's lots of other troops around here that do plenty of activities as well. We have one of the Cub Scouts troops here that is attending. And they're sitting in the back right here, the younger kids. What it's Mr. Erickson.
Hello, I'm Mr. Erickson. Here as a representative for Cub Scout Pack 552, heat up by Shaw Road Elementary. And it's a youth organization, activities for the kids, breaks up by age group. And they're all done with it by the age of, well, by the time they get to 5th grade, they're wrapped up with Cub Scouts and they move on to Boy Scouts. So kind of quick thing there. They do all types of activities, outdoor activities, games, just learning how to work together and just being good kids. So
Great.
All right.
Thank you very much. I'd like to have all the scouts come forward right now. I'd like to give you each a pin from the city of Puyallup, just to kind of a nice memento for being here.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. All right, thank you.
Again, thank you for that. We actually had 2 high school students from Puyallup High School who came forward at a previous meeting, and they were students who were involved in robotics, and they had invented a robot that would actually go out and using visual technology could identify trash and would pick up trash. And granted, it's kind of in its beginning stage, but with that, they're on to moving for even greater adventures. So again, welcome. Glad you were here this evening, and it's just good to see the youth of our community. With that, we're going to move on to the approval of the agenda. And I believe we have a motion.
Second.
Move to approve.
Excuse
You got the
me.
second.
I believe we have a motion before we go for approval. Councilmember Whitting.
I would like to move to amend the agenda to include item 6B regarding appointment of representatives to Pierce County Regional Council.
Okay. Good. Hearing no objection, I'll go ahead and move that to a motion to approve the amended agenda. Do I hear a motion to do that?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll now move on. We're going to now move into consideration of minutes. And that's for 2A approval of the July 2nd, 2024 minutes. Do I have a motion?
Move approval. Second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're now going to move on to number 3, presentations and proclamations. And I just happened to be reading this magazine. I don't know if you guys have seen this magazine at all. Well, by golly, it's Jim Martinson, and that's who this proclamation is for. Our first proclamation. This is in Northwest Runner, and it's September 1985. And I have to tell you, our first proclamation this evening from the city of Puyallup is for a hero of mine. And he happens to be here this evening, but I met Jim when I was about 13, 14. He was a leader of a youth group at a church I attended. And I have to tell you, that's been now over 50 years. And I have admired him as an individual, as an athlete. And whenever anything strikes me where I start to feel sorry for myself, I think of this man. And I think that what he has done in his life is tremendous. And you'll see when I read the proclamation. So let me go ahead and read that, and then we'll all meet Jim. Whereas Jim Martinson grew up with 3 brothers in Sumner, Washington, where sports were a way of life. During winter weekends in the 1950s, his family skied the small rope tow area in the Cascades, and Jim dreamt of spending his life as a ski bum. Whereas in 1968, Jim was serving in Vietnam when a tripped explosive device caused him to lose both of his legs. Whereas Jim did not allow this accident to break his will, after 6 days of unconsciousness, he awoke, looked down, saw that both his legs were gone, to which his reaction was, "What's next?" Whereas before long, Jim became a pioneer of disabled sports, fighting for and winning acceptance of wheelchair categories. In 1981, he founded the company Magic in Motion and invented special equipment for disabled athletes to compete, including himself. Whereas Jim began wheelchair racing in 1976 and in 1981, took first place in the Boston Marathon. In 1985, he created Shadow Monoski, a device that allowed the disabled to participate in winter sports, the winter sport of skiing. Whereas Jim began to dominate both summer and winter Paralympic events, excelling in track, basketball, and skiing. In 1990, Jim Martinson joined the U.S. disabled ski team, earning a gold at the 1992 Winter Paralympics in Albertville, France. Jim even appeared in a Warren Miller movie, which, if you know, if you're a skier, it's a dream for any ski enthusiast. Whereas the word can't is not in Jim's vocabulary, he is now considered the founding father of adaptive skiing. In 2003, he was inducted into the National Disabled Hall of Fame in Vail, Colorado. In 2015, he was admitted to the U.S. Ski Snowboard Hall of Fame. Whereas Jim is truly an inspiration to all individuals, including Paralympic medalist Chris Waddell, Sarah Will, and Muffy Davis. Not only has he increased access to various adaptive sports, but his tenacity and his perseverance in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds have inspired others to pursue their dreams, no matter what limitations they may face. Whereas Jim and his wife Colleen have 4 children and 4 grandchildren and reside in Puyallup, where he continues to inspire the adaptive community by an example that they can do anything. They just do it differently. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Puyallup City Council that we recognize July 16th today, 2024, as Jim Martinson Day in the city of Puyallup, and call upon all residents to recognize Jim as a shining example of grit, determination, and inspiration to athletes of all ability levels within our community. Eyewitness whereof I, Mayor Jim Castema, have hereon to set my hand and cause the seal of Seattle, the city of Puyallup, to be affixed the 16th day of July 2024. And Jim, if you could come forward, please, I'd like to give you this certificate.
Thank you. Thank Mayor Castema and City Council. Thank you all so very much. What an honor, what a privilege, but nothing like this happens without people like my family behind me. I want to share a quick little story because when I got wounded in Vietnam in 1968, I was hit on June 29th. I woke up on July 4th in Yokohama, Japan. Spent 1 month before I got back home, and my parents knew that I lost my legs. They hadn't seen me for over a year and a half. So when mom and dad came to the hospital, mom was a prayer warrior, dad was a World War II veteran, and my dad just didn't know what to do. And I remember looking at him and said, Dad, it's okay. I just lost my legs. It wasn't like the worst thing that could happen. And I know that sounds corny, but that's always been my attitude, because I think what we try to do, what we can do, the best we could do is what we have.
Yep.
And I have to tell you that when I won that Boston Marathon, the city of Puyallup got behind me so much that back then they did not allow, they did not have money for wheelchair athletes to go to races, even though we had a really strong field. So I got together with Ralph Wellis, and Ralph Wellis, a World War II veteran, said, I'll get you finance to go to the Boston Marathon. And I said, well, go ahead. He goes over to McDonald's, 1981. 1981, he goes to McDonald's. It was pretty much brand new back then. And they did the French fry Jim Martinson Day, literally. And they sold enough French fries for my wife and I to travel to the Boston Marathon and take care of our flight and our room. So there's a lot of money in those French fries. And everybody sees this shirt that I have on, and we had a shirt made with said McDonald's and with the golden arches, and it was pretty cool. And I just have to say that you can't do this alone. In your life, everybody needs help. And I thank you, my family, and I love you guys. So thank you.
Jim?
Yes.
If you'd like, please introduce your family.
Holy mackerel.
Ah,
Okay. Henry is down there at the end with his mother, and they grew up in the valley. Emily O'Ravis, Jeremy's wife. Jeremy's next in line. Julie Brazier, her husband had to work, so he's off. And this is Brooke, is that right? Brock, excuse me, his new boyfriend for Mia. Mia, and then Trisha, my stepdaughter, and my wife Colleen, and this guy right here. We had a little incident the other day. I had a couple of coupons, and I took him out to Dairy Queen. So I went to Dairy Queen, and he goes, Grandpa, stop that. I said, well, they could only use one coupon. I said, well, you buy something, and then I'll pay for it, and then don't, Grandpa, don't do that. So so he's been teasing me about that. So grandkids keep you honest. So thank you all. I forgot Royal. Oh, there you are. Royal and Bella are in the back. Royal is stationed at JBLM, and he's going to be doing guard duty pretty quick. So I have to go out there and go through, and they're going to have my first great grandchild. So congratulations. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jim. Thank you. If any of you are skiers, you can go up to Crystal Mountain, and I ski on a regular basis out there. I've been teaching now for 4 years up there, and you will see Jim up there on the mono ski that he invented. And it is beauty. It's just sheer beauty to watch him ski. And so anyway, again, Jim, it's quite an honor. Yes, you can be excused. In fact, you know, the scouts too, you feel free that if you want to, but please go ahead. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. We now have another proclamation, and this is for the American Association of University Women. We usually have one proclamation every time we have a council meeting, but we have two and a presentation. And part of it is the council will be not convening for one entire month until August the 20th. So this today is a very eventful meeting where we're actually doing a little bit more than we normally would. So be aware of that. So with this proclamation, again, this is for the American Association of University Women. And whereas the history of American Association of University Women mirrors the progress of women of the United States. Whereas in 1881, a small group of female college graduates banded together to open doors for women's careers advancement through the creation of the AAUW, which has fought to remove barriers and biases that exist in the workplace, universities, and society. Whereas the AAUW was founded by Marion Talbot, who became the Dean of the College of Women at the University of Chicago and a leading figure in higher education, and Ellen Swallow Richards, the first woman to earn a degree in chemistry and a leader in the field of home economics. Whereas the AAUW was instrumental in publishing hundreds of research reports supporting women's access to college education and pursuing careers in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, also known as STEM. Whereas the AAUW advocated for Congress to pass the Equal Pay Act of 1963, the Family and Medical Leave Act of 1993, the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act of 2009, and the Paycheck Fairness Act of 2019. Whereas the Puyallup Valley branch of the AAUW was formed in 1979 with just 86 members and a mission to enhance women's causes and access to education. Whereas today, the AAUW Puyallup Valley branch represents hundreds of women in Pierce County, advocating for issues important to women. Whereas today, the AAUW Puyallup Valley branch impacts its local communities by encouraging and supporting its girls and young women in areas of STEM. Whereas the AAUW provides training opportunities for women to negotiate fair pay and benefits and pursue leadership roles. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed at the Puyallup City Council that we recognize August 10th, 2024 as the 45th anniversary of the American Association of University Women and declare the day as American Association of University Women Day in the city of Puyallup, and call upon all citizens to recognize the achievements and praise women of all backgrounds to be empowered, respected, and heard. I, Mayor Jim Castema, have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the city of Puyallup to be affixed the 16th day of July, 2024. And if we could have representatives from the AAUW, please come forward. I believe Jenny.
Thank you, Mayor Castema, council members, and Eric Johnson for your support and recognition of our organization. Washington State has 28 branches of the American Association of University Women, and our Puyallup Valley branch is the 6th largest in the state. Next month, we will be honoring 8 amazing women who founded our branch as we look back at our local history. Our AAUW branch serves 3 objectives: advocacy and support of political issues important to women, support of local girls in STEM, and social opportunities for members. Since 1979, we have attended lobby days in Olympia to address women's issues. Recent support has targeted broadband infrastructure and services across the state, equity and access for women in apprenticeship programs, a healthcare system that provides affordable and accessible reproductive, prenatal, and postpartum services, and economic security, including gender and racial equality in the workplace. Since 1996, we have provided over $130,000 for educational support in our communities. We have awarded innovative teaching grants each year to the 5 local school districts we support: Puyallup, Fife, Ording, Sumner, and Chief Leschi. To date, we have awarded these to 55 teachers. If each grant only impacted 30 students, that would amount to well over 1,600 students who have benefited. Each year, we honor the top junior girls in math, science, and career technical ed from the 8 high schools served by these 5 districts. We have honored over 460 girls for their academic excellence. Since 2013, we have interviewed and funded 85 7th grade girls to attend a week-long STEM camp at PLU called Tech Trek. Since 2018, we have provided scholarships to 12 young women from the High School Scholars Program, who we honor as juniors. In 2018, we cultivated and created the Puyallup Garden Tour, which has been successful in funding our various community-enhancing programs. We hope you will all look for this opportunity to view local gardens and help support our programs each June. The bookmarks you were handed advertise our garden tour, and our website is on the bookmark, and a local artist is responsible for creating the art each year for our programs. In addition to these community and philanthropic endeavors, we hold monthly social activities for our members. More information can be found about our organization by Googling Puyallup Valley AAUW. We always welcome new members, and thank you so much for your support.
Thank you. Okay, before public comments, we will have a presentation on the public safety building project. For approximately 10 years, the city council has worked on replacing the current public safety building, which you can find down here at Pioneer, not very far from the city hall. You can see it close to the community center that we have there in the post office. So for 10 years, we've been working on that. A bond issue went to the voters 3 times and it did not pass. So this is an alternative to that. And what I would like to have happen this evening is I'd like to have staff give this presentation, and then I'd like to have the public have the opportunity to comment on that. To council members, you can ask questions if you'd like, but keep in mind that when we return on August the 20th, we will at that time deliberate this issue, and we will make actions at that time if it's the consensus of this council to do so. But I would like to take this opportunity to have the public go ahead and comment. Now with that, keep in mind, last Saturday on the 14th, we did have in the library, was it the 14th? Yeah, the 14th. 13th, correct. I apologize. The 13th, we did also have this presentation at the library, and we had probably about approximately 30 people who did show up for that. And again, we want public input, and that's what this is about. So with that, City Manager Steve Kirkley, please proceed.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Castleman and council members. Steve Kirkley, City Manager. As the mayor just mentioned, this is pretty much the exact same presentation that we did at the community meeting on the 13th, this last Saturday at the library. As you all wanted more opportunities for the public to hear the presentation if they couldn't attend on Saturday. So that's why we were here again to do the same presentation this evening. As the mayor had mentioned, the police facility, the police building over on 311 West Pioneer is quite old. It was built in 1968. And obviously we have outgrown that building by quite a bit. And we're going to talk about that tonight in our presentation. As you all council knows, and I think as the community knows, the city has been working on this project really since about 2015. That's when it started at a city council retreat up at a hotel in South Hill. And this matter has gone out to the voters a few times. And so we are here today, again, coming back with a different potential proposal that we want to go over with you. This particular proposal that we'll go into initially came to you back in February, this February, at your city council retreat. At that point, council staff had a very, very preliminary discussion and presentation with all of you on this. And at that retreat, you all provided direction to keep going and do more due diligence. So that's what we've been doing over the past 6 months or so. And now we're ready to come back to you into the community and to present this proposal, as the mayor said, that will come back to you in a more formal context next month, where then you would begin deliberations and further discussions on it. So I just wanted to set the context and also just provide a brief introduction of what our presentation will be this evening. So I will talk about the location of where this potential new police station will be. And then Kim Doyle with McKinsey Architects. McKinsey has been with us and Kim for several years on this project. So Kim will go over the schematics of the potential police station at the new location. She'll also go over the light, I emphasize light remodel of the jail. As you may know, that we would not be adding any new cells. This would be a very light remodel that would add ancillary services to the jail. And the jail would remain at the existing location, 311 West Pioneer. Kim will also go over just some basic schematics of a police substation. So the police will still have presence in downtown and will be at 311 West Pioneer, the existing police station. Then Chief Engel will come up and talk about the why this is needed, and the path that you all and the community has taken to get to this point. And why it's needed in the future. And then our finance director, Barbara Lopez, will come up and talk about the finances of it, the lease provisions that we will be bringing back to you and how to fund it. One thing I will say is, as Barbara will talk about, we are not proposing this matter go out on the ballot. I know previously they've gone out on the ballot. This would not. Barbara will talk about why that is. Over the past probably about 14 years or so, council has made decisions 7-8 times not to raise property taxes. And that funding basically sits there and is available for you to use. And so as you will see tonight in the proposal, we are recommending use of some of that designated property tax funds that's available. Does not require a vote. So Barbara will go over that. Okay, so I'm going to then start in the presentation and orient you to where the new potential police station would be. So this is just an aerial map of the city. And as you can see, the existing police station is at 311 West Pioneer here in downtown. And that's where the police and jail is located. Under this proposal, as you will learn, there will still be a police substation there, and there will be the lightly remodeled jail. The new location that we are presenting would be up at the Benaroya South Hill Business and Technology Center. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but it's this yellow box up here, which is right across the street from our Public Works corporate yard. So this is where all our Public Works facilities are located. This map will give you a better idea geographically where this is. So just to orient you here, this is 39th Avenue Southeast, running east and west. This is Bradley Lake Park. Pierce College is to the east. Right there. And then we have Wesley Homes, a retirement community right there. And then this is Kaiser Permanente Medical Clinic. So the Benaroya complex is this area here. And the portion that we would be proposing to use to lease for the police building is on the first floor of this building, and it's not the entire building. Kim will go into a little bit more detail and has a better schematic to show that here in a minute. And this is just an aerial view of it. And so we would be leasing a portion of the first floor of this building. Central Pierce Fire and Rescue also is leasing for their administrative building basically across the hall from where we would be. So this is just to orient you. I'm going to have Kim now come up and give you an overview of the interior improvements for the police station and the substation and the jail. Or I'm sorry, Scott, Chief Engel. I'm sorry. They're looking at me like, what are you talking about? Sorry, Chief Engel.
Thank you, City Manager Kirkley, Mayor Castema, members of council, Chief Scott Engel from the Puyallup Police Department. My role tonight is to talk about the why. Why are we talking about this again? Why is there a need? Why are we continuing to look for a solution to the public safety building? And I think it's important to start with the why actually and understanding the context. And the context is around what has changed in our community that brings us to the point that we're at today, considering a new police station up on the hill, a substation downtown, and a very light remodel of the jail. I think most of you know I grew up in this community. My family had a house 2 doors over on 6th Avenue Southwest, just past the Sinclair gas station. I used to stand out on Meridian during the fair in traffic flagging cars. You could go downtown. We had J.C. Penney's, Elvin's for a while, lots of Pullman's Corner where you could do the 5 and dime thing, and the world famous Piggly Wiggly that every kid loved to ride on the long carts and race around the store. You'd go up South Meridian to the top of the hill, and what you see up there today is not what I saw when I was a kid. You saw all trees. You made a left and you made your way down Meridian and you got to the world's best burger place, I think, Earthquake Burgers. And then there was Mega Foods, and Mega Foods was popular with the kids because they had those bins that kids reach our hands into and enjoy free things out of there where our parents were shopping. And I share that with you because if you come back downtown, you think about the changes. The library was where the pavilion was. The court and the city hall were over to the kind of over by the police station across the court. 2nd Street went down southbound to 4th Avenue there. And there were parks. Pioneer Park had the swing set that back up to 2nd Street, lots of large trees. And I don't think you would have found a multi-story building back when I grew up here in Puyallup. And I share that with you because I think what that paints is a picture of change. Lots has changed in our community. We just have to take a step back and look around us and realize the change in our community. But I will tell you that one thing is not changed in our community, and that is the Puyallup Police Station downtown. It pretty much looks the same way today as it did when I was a kid playing in Pioneer Park. Maybe a little different color scheme, but for the most part, it's the same flat roof, it's the same design, it's the same thing. And over the years, what we've changed truly has been carpet, paint, and some minor cosmetical things. But the growth in our community, the changes in our community, we as a department have changed. We have changed how we provide services, programs that we offer, how we try to serve our community. But where we do that from has not changed, even in light of all the change in our community. And as things age, things change and they wear out. Our building is 50 years old. I turned 50 this year, and I can certainly tell you things have changed and probably will continue to change. But our building is something that is beginning and has hindered our operations. And that's why we're at the point that we are today in light of the context of change. A couple examples I wanted to share tonight is people have said, can you bring this to life for people to understand? I think some of you know we recently added a designated crisis responder, a civilian position that responds with our police officers to people experiencing crisis in our community, whether that's mental health crisis, addiction crisis, whatever that may be. Another tool for us to be able to hopefully help solve a problem and bring services to people who are in need. Well, when that program came forward and we sat down with Multicare, who's the sponsor of that program, they told us that person has to have an office, and it has to be a secure office because that person will conduct medical interviews over the telephone and do some follow-up on the people that they see. Well, in good Puyallup Police Department fashion, as you know, we have no more space left in our building, and we faced a choice. Do we have the program or do we not? Because we're out of space. And in true Puyallup Police Department fashion, we converted what was literally the electrical room for the old radio tower system in our building to an office, because that's all we had to work with. And that person sits in an office not much bigger than probably the area I'm standing here. Another area that I think is something that points us in a direction of change is our Police Explorer program. Puyallup's had a vibrant program for young people in our community who say, I might want to be a police officer when I get older. Personally, I think the greatest public service there is. But when you come to the Puyallup Police Department, the Explorer office for our 13 and up year olds that are involved in that program is literally a former bathroom stall. I know some of you have seen it on the tour, off of the main entryway in our lobbyway. Not a place that they can conduct any of their meetings, not a place where they can have their own office, simply a place that they can walk into and store some of their things. Many of you remember that this year, unfortunately, we experienced a homicide in our northwest area of our community up by San Peach Park. A very, very violent and senseless tragedy for a young woman who had the rest of her life ahead of her. That happened on a Sunday night. All of our detectives responded out for that call and began to work that case from the minute they got the page. I came in Monday and I walked upstairs, which most of you know is where our detective section is, and I wanted to see, how are we doing? Because one of the things we don't have that modern day police facilities have is what we would call a war room or a case room. It's where when you have a major incident, your detectives go in there and that's where they sequester. That's where they put things up on the wall, people's pictures up on the wall, technology, if we had the ability to do that, through video, through surveillance, and they begin to work that case from beginning to end. And it's something that they can secure and leave there, frankly, until the case is done. But all of their things are in there. We don't have that at the Puyallup Police Department. So I was curious, how are our detectives going to navigate this? And they did a really good job working out of their cubicles as they could, investigating that case. But it's a prime example for us of an area where we're better than that. And we could be so much better than that if we had a facility that helped support the needs that we have in our department. As we've diversified in the department and welcomed lots and lots of new people into the police department, one of the areas that we would like to continue to improve upon is the representation of female officers in our department. They bring a great power to the police department. They bring a great power to our profession. But when you come to Puyallup, unfortunately, our locker room for the females is so small that we don't have enough lockers to even be able to give them one. And that's another area where I think we're better than that. Our community's better than that. And that's a tremendous need for us. The building is old. It's run down. It's lived its life. And we have grown over the last 50 years. Just as things have changed in town, things have changed in our department. And we need a facility that supports our officers and staff doing the best they can to serve our community in the prevention of crime and, frankly, apprehension and prosecution of crime. I look at Puyallup and think about this analogy of a canoe. There's so many people in the canoe in Puyallup who are rowing in the same direction for the quality of life that we have in Puyallup. If you look outside the blinds tonight, you'll see families at Pioneer Park, people playing in the different areas in our community. We have business organizations, civic organizations. There's so many people engaged in Puyallup and making Puyallup better and great. The police department is part of that. We have a seat on the canoe, but we need tools to be able to continue to row with everyone else in the canoe going in the same direction. And that's the building, the jail. You know, we heard through this process when the last attempt did not pass at the ballot, we've listened very sincerely and very strategically to feedback. The proposal before council does not add a single bed in the jail. It adds, as the city manager described, ancillary spaces, spaces where we can help offenders that we are housing to hopefully get them in a better place before they go out the door, which hopefully means better and less recidivism in our community. It allows our officers probably the #1 tool that they need to ensure that the law matters in Puyallup and that we're able to seek justice for victims in any neighborhood, in any park, in any business. And that's the ability to arrest an offender if needed and start that person in the criminal justice system. Our canoe, we want to be in that canoe, but we're at a point where we come from a building that no longer meets the needs. And all of our police officers, all of our staff want to be successful in providing positive service to our community. I think lastly, what I'll close with is I think about all of the great things about our community. There's so much this community has to offer. That's why there's so many civic groups, businesses, individuals, leaders, government, elected officials, all pulling for Puyallup. Well, from my perspective, Puyallup is better than what we are right now with the current public safety building. And this proposal that's before you checks, I think, all of the boxes, listens to all of the feedback, it tries to address all of the concerns, and certainly make sure that we have officers downtown for our downtown residents who are very loud about making sure officers remain visible in our downtown area, prepares us for growth over the next 30 years, and continues to provide the officers the #1 tool that they need to ensure justice for victims and safety in our community, and that's our jail. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. As Steve mentioned, I'm Kim Doyle, Senior Associate and Project Manager with McKinsey. Brett Hansen, who you normally see presenting at these city council meetings, myself and the city have been working very closely on this project since 2017, 2018. I'm actually a member of the community. I live a couple blocks west. I actually was part of the 2016 Citizens Academy. So even before Mackenzie started working on this project, I saw firsthand, I think it was our first class. We took a tour of the facility and I saw the W spaces, the restrooms converted to offices and all of that firsthand. So it's been exciting. Most of my career, I have focused on law enforcement, emergency response, and our Department of Defense facilities. So it's been a great, fulfilling passion to see my community and working with the city together to see those two merge. So when we were presented this opportunity to consider earlier this year for the Benaroya building, it's really exciting. We don't see very often existing facilities be able to meet the requirements for an essential facility. So any essential facility must meet the category 4 essential facility requirements. So that's they must maintain function if there's a natural disaster or a seismic event. So they're the top level of the structural assessment and building. So typically we don't see this. The Benaroya building was originally built for a little bit more robust than a typical commercial office. It was built for manufacturing. So it's a level category 2. So we started to look at that opportunity. We had our structural engineers out to the building, review existing documentation, and consider a path forward. Is this even feasible? They developed a path forward where the building could be upgraded to the category 4. And that's something that the landlord has offered and willing to upgrade the entire facility. So that's including the central pier space, future expansion on the second floor as well would all be upgraded to that category 4. With that, so just, Mackenzie's been involved with over 70 planning of 70 facilities, law enforcement facilities. We can probably count less than a handful of the facilities that we see that would be a renovation that actually pan out and work for those seismic categories. There's a little bit of a delay on the slides. But just with that, this one did pan out. It does work and it works very well. So the site. So one thing when we first start to look at any site for any law enforcement facility, there's things that we consider. Is there 2 points of access, vehicle access to the site. This site has 2 access points from 39th. We also look at delineation of public parking versus secure parking. Are those 2 separate areas? Does it have an identifiable public entrance, capacity to support the building function and program, not just for the current need, but for the future needs. So we're planning for 30 years down the road. And is the site big enough for the program? And does it have exterior security and safety approaches? This site had all of those. It had the multiple access points, as I mentioned. There's generous public parking. If you saw on one of the earlier slides of the aerial, there's a big, on the planned north side of the site, there's actually, in the aerial, it's undeveloped. As you see here, the landlord is actually, or the building owner is actually developed all that additional parking to the planned north side of the site already. We actually are able to put on the south side would be the public parking. Will be incorporating a public entrance front and center that's dedicated to the police department. So there's the capacity to support the parking needs. And it also has the infrastructure to support the emergency power and the utility needs for the department. And then just moving over to the building. So evaluating a building, especially an existing building. Can it meet the operational function for the police department? We really want these to be on a single level. One, just for your efficiencies within the department and collaboration, but also for cost. When you go up to 2 levels, you increase your square footage. You have stairs, elevators, you have a second set of bathrooms. Those all come at a cost versus a single floor. This building, actually the restrooms that you see on kind of the plan east side in the white, those are actually already built very nicely. They're all tiled. We're going to keep those in. So we have some of that infrastructure already combined in there. This building has the capacity on a single level to support the initial 30-year programming needs and beyond. And that includes the police department and also the EOC and a community and training room spaces. It has ease of access to the public for entry. You see that in the middle of the lower portion of the plan, but also a second evidence release area on the plan north side of there. And then also the secure officer entry off that secure parking lot. One thing just to mention too on that secure parking lot, if I go back really quick, you see that up on the blowout on the right side. That's an existing parking lot that's already there. So there's really minimal construction that we need to do for that. It's restriping, adding a security fence and gates, and then the access to the building. And with this building, there's room for potential expansion. There's the area up to the plan northwest side in the white that is vacant. And then there's a whole second floor as well. And then just talking long-term options, it's a significant less cost versus new construction, which Barbara will get into a little bit later. And then the existing building, this is 311 West Pioneer. So just starting, we're not expanding the footprint except for a small portion that I'll get into, but just starting at the existing main entry, we would maintain the shared lobby for the jail and the police. We would add a records counter to that as well, and then an officer report writing area along with a meeting room. So maintaining that downtown police station presence. For the jail, really what we're looking for, this is really a light refresh that we're looking here. And this is really, we want to focus on the health and wellness of the inmates along with the correction staff, and then security and safety for both the correction staff and the inmates. And that, as Chief mentioned, the access to rehabilitative services. So we stop that recidivism and stop the cycle of returning to jail and get them program help and get them back in the community. So we've worked very closely as we developed this plan with police department and the command staff. So you see in the orange line, both at the very top and then along the side, kind of in the middle of the plan. The yellow is the or is the jail. That orange line is the existing jail footprint. So very top of the plan, you see the number 1. Right now, within the jail, the Sally Port for the inmate drop off is also the inmate recreation. It's a shared function. So we're actually expanding out just to include a Sally Port and delineate those 2 functions into separate uses. As Chief mentioned, we're not expanding the bed count. That will maintain the same as it currently is. And then we are also adding the inmate recreation, but we're giving a little bit of an expanded kitchen service, adding laundry and true inmate storage along with mattress storage. There'd be a dedicated video arraignment room along with the programming classroom. That's where the services come in to help with that recidivism, and a dedicated medical and DUI area. So that's the main portion of the light remodel. This does include replacing, updating the roof. I know that's been an issue. So within that dollar amount would include updating the roof.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Barbara Lopez, the Finance Director. We've got all these beautiful plans, and then it's my job to come here and talk to you about, okay, what do we think that this is going to cost and how do we pay for it? So we are looking at a long-term lease of 30 years. The square footage that we would be leasing is 54,000 square feet. That is actually police usable square feet of 48,000, and then building common areas of 6,000 make up that total. The base rental fee, actually the lease itself, there are 2 components to the actual lease cost. It's the base rental fee and then what they call triple nets, which are the operating expenses. So the base rental fee itself would start at just over $19 per square foot, which would cost us about $1 million a year. The operating expenses, those are things like, power, water, other utilities, janitorial, maintenance, all of those things that go into maintaining a building. It would be our proportionate share of those costs. We are estimating those to be about $510,000 for a year. So the estimated annual lease for the first year would be just over $1.5 million. We do expect that base rent to go up by about 2.1% per year, based on conversations that we've already had. And the operating expenses we are estimating would grow by about 3% per year, but that first year would be just over 1.5 million. That's just leasing the space. Then Kim talked about the upgrades and the tenant improvements. So we would need to obviously do those before we could even think about moving in. The total cost of those improvements is about $33.7 million. Benaroya has already indicated that they are willing to do all of the seismic upgrades to the building to bring it up to that category 4 that was mentioned. Our estimates have that at about 8.3 million. Then that leaves about 25.4 million to build out the space as was presented by Kim. The way that we would propose to pay for that is we've got some cash on hand of about $1.6 million in our capital facilities fund that we would put towards that. And then the rest of that would be councilmanic bonds issued by council. I do want to point out that councilmanic bonds are actually different than voted bonds when we go out for a voter initiative. Councilmanic bonds are actually paid for from just regular property taxes or other just general city revenues. Whereas when we go out for a voted bond issue and it gets approved by the voters, they are actually approving an excess levy of property taxes over and above the regular property tax. So this is a kind of bond that council just can approve, and then we work together to figure out what city monies actually pay for that. So it doesn't go out to the voters. So that would be about 25.4 or $23.8 million that we would do for the councilmanic bonds. Obviously, we have to pay that back. Looking at paying that back, it would be about $1.6 million. If you see the debt service on tenant improvements line on there, just under $1.6 million per year over 30 years, matching to the lease term of 30 years. So total between just the annual lease and paying the debt on the tenant improvements, we would have an annual cost in that first year of $3.1 million. As a finance director, I'm often skeptical of leases. Oftentimes a lease costs more than actually building something or buying something outright. So we did the math on that and determined that the lease actually is the better way to go on it. On this particular slide, the lease costs are in the middle column in orange. Again, it's just laying out the 30 years, what Benaroya is willing to contribute and our city contributions. Down towards the bottom, I've provided what it would cost for those 30 years. So the lease cost, if we extrapolate that out over 30 years, we would be paying $67.1 million during that time frame, and then repaying the debt for those tenant improvements would be about $47.4 million. So over the course of those 30 years, that lease with the tenant improvements would cost us about $114.5 million. If you compare that to the build costs, which are on the right, the square footage that we would actually build would be 48,700 square feet. That was one of the original proposals that we brought. Gosh, I think that might have been the first voted that we went out for, was the 48,000 square feet. It would be a 30-year debt service term. The cost of that building would be $64.8 million. If we go out to bond on that, we would do councilmanic bonds again, rather than take it out to the voters. We would need to figure out how to pay for that, because down towards the bottom, you can see that the debt service on those construction costs, if we built a building, would be about $4.4 million a year to pay for that. Over the course of the 30 years, we would pay $131 million for that building. Because we would be owning another building, we would have operation and maintenance costs that go along with that. We estimate those as at about $400,000 a year. So over the 30 years, it would be about $18.6 million. Adding those two together to build and maintain a building from scratch would cost about $149.6 million as compared to the $114 of leasing. That's $35 million more over the course of 30 years. So it really did pan out that this lease was more advantageous than building something. So now that you know a little bit more about the costs, what would be our mechanism for paying for this? Because we're not going out to the voters and asking for an excess levy. So potential funding options that are available to council are, the top one on the left is an excise tax on private utilities. These are things like electricity, natural gas, telephone, cable, garbage. Right now, our rate on that is 4.2%. We would potentially up that to the 6% maximum that's allowed. The vast majority of cities in King and Pierce counties and actually across the state are already all at 6%. So we would not be any different than our counterparts throughout the rest of the state. The cost for that, if that happened, would be about $11 per month on the average family of four. Another fee that is available is increasing the cable franchise fee from 3.4% that it is now to its 5% maximum. This is a fee charged on cable companies to compensate the city for using our right-of-ways to have their cable underground in those right-of-ways. So that is available to us. Another tax that's available to us is what we call banked property tax capacity. So banked property tax capacity happens when council actually levies less in property tax than what we're allowed to by law. Pierce County actually keeps track of all of this for us. It's a kind of a sort of a savings account. Since 2008, there were 8 years when council did not levy the 1% increase that's allowable each year. And this actually created some bank capacity. Pierce County keeps track of it. They've set it aside. Again, it's the difference between what council could have levied and what they actually did levy. So the $730,000 on here of bank property tax capacity represents those 8 years where the 1% allowable increase was not taken. So it basically kind of pretends or it gets us to the point where we've taken all of those 1%. And then the final piece would be is that we would actually look at cutting some general fund budget expenses for another 730,000, which would bring us to 3.35 million, which would cover the cost of the lease and the debt service on the tenant improvements. We also have some one-time funding. It's unallocated funds that are within the current budget. Unallocated tier 3 that we could use for the jail remodel portion of 5 million. And then I mentioned earlier that we have about 1.6 million in facilities capital that we could put towards the tenant improvements so that we wouldn't have to issue quite as many bonds. So that is the costs and the funding and the end of our presentation.
Thank you. City Manager Steve Kirkley, thank you for that presentation. As I mentioned before, this was the presentation that we gave last Saturday on the 13th to a community meeting of probably there were about 30 people who were present. The point of this presentation is to give this proposal as much exposure as possible so that the public can see it and provide their input. And we're now going to go into public comments. Normally, we would have public comments very quickly at the beginning of a meeting, but in this case, we went through the presentation, et cetera. And again, the important reason why is we want to hear the feedback from the public on this proposal. The council may actually take action on it as soon as August 20th, and that's 1 month from this meeting today. So again, we're looking for as much public input as possible. Now we're going to go into the public comment, citizens comment section. And if I could have the city clerk please read the guidelines for that, I would like the public to come forward and again, give us comments, questions you may have, et cetera. Proceed.
This part of the meeting is for general citizen comments. Please reserve any public hearing testimony to that section of the agenda. The mayor will call on those who have provided their names in advance. Then the mayor will call for other citizens who wish to speak. For the record, please state your name and address or city council district in which you reside. Please direct your comments to the council as a whole, not individual council members. All comments are limited to 3 minutes. The clerk will provide verbal notice when only 30 seconds remain. As a reminder, this portion of the meeting is council's opportunity to hear from the community and not a time to engage in debate. Lastly, per state law, this public comment period cannot be used to speak in support of or in opposition to a ballot measure or individual candidacy, and no such comments will be allowed.
Thank you. I give preference to people who have filled out this form and hand it to the city clerk, and they talk about the subject that they wish to speak on, and then I take them by that order. Having said that, when I'm through with these, I will go ahead and allow anyone who wants to speak to come forward. So don't feel as if you didn't hand this in, that you're not going to get the opportunity to speak. It's just you may not be at the front of the queue. So with that, first person, Beth Gibson. And just a reminder that public comments at council meetings are limited to 3 minutes. I'll be as polite as I can if you go over that, but just keep in mind 3 minutes. Thank you.
Yes, good evening, council members and mayor. My name's Beth Gibson. I live in Berrywood Condominiums, 1002 9th Avenue Southeast. And I wanted to speak in support of this project. You know, personally, I would have loved to have seen one of the ballot measures passed, because after seeing the tour of the current public safety building, I recognize that they need a lot of work. But, you know, this proposal looks like it gives us a good compromise between, you know, the funding, the space available, and what we can do. So I do hope that council will proceed to approve this, and let's get going, because our employees deserve better than what they have now. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate those comments. Actually, we had another one of these, but I think it was eliminated. So if anyone else would like to come forward, please, the microphone is yours. And just state your name and your address or district you're from. Please proceed.
My name is Don Cottam. I live in District 1. Mr. Mayor and members of the council, I attended the meeting on Saturday, and then hearing all the information again tonight, I am quite convinced that this is a real solution to the problem that has gone on far too long. I believe, you know, as the mayor said, we failed 3 times to build something. So we need to go somewhere else. And I think this is the answer. I would urge the council to accept this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comments? Doc, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Doc Hanson, District 2. When I first came to Puyallup, it was 1986. Your chief then was a young whippersnapper, and it was 20 years before he stopped me on my first traffic stop. So I was looking at the facility because I just moved down the street, and I told my wife then that this building was going to have to change. This is 1986. So I was recognizing that as a professional planner. And I would strongly recommend that this be done, because how long is that? It's been 40 years, almost 40 years since I've come here and looked at that and said it's too old. So I strongly recommend that you look at this and approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Yes, please.
Hello, my name's Richard Belshea. I live in the northwest section of the city at 1007 22nd Street Northwest. My family moved to Puyallup in 1964. So I've been a resident of Puyallup for 60 years. In 1968, I was a junior at Puyallup High School when the current facility was built. And that meant nothing to me at the time. But as time went on, I actually got interested in law enforcement. I applied for the Puyallup Police Department, and I didn't get hired. So I settled for second best, and I did a 34 career with the Seattle Police Department. And I come from a big police family. I had 2 brothers-in-law that worked for Puyallup, and then my son, sister, and I all work for Seattle. I've been retired for almost 12 years now. During that time, I actually accepted an appointment with the Puyallup Civil Service Commission. And that gave me the opportunity to go into the current facility many times, because I went to as many badge pinnings, promotion ceremonies, award ceremonies that I could, representing the Civil Service Commission. And that was important mainly to let the people know that's a special day for those people. And so it was important for me on the Civil Service Commission to let them know that we shared in the excitement of their special day. But we met for all of these ceremonies in a room that couldn't even hold all of the people that came to celebrate that day. And it's like Chief Engel said, you know, he remembers that when you got to the top of Meridian and all you saw was trees. Well, I remember those days too. And, you know, I talk to my grandchildren and I say, you know, you may not believe this, but I used to buy Snicker bars for 5 cents. I remember when scones were 10 cents at the fair. Now I pay $2 for a Snicker bar, and I think it's smaller than what I got for a nickel 60 years ago. But
30
you know,
seconds.
getting to the point of the building here, the upgrade and moving to a newer facility, you know, this 2-phase thing it's long overdue. It is much needed. And what the council is proposing here is very much appreciated by at least me, speaking as a voter here in Puyallup. And I really hope
Mr. Mayor,
that you
speakers
move
reach 3
forward
minutes.
on this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Still trying to get over the 5-cent Snicker bar. My kids can't believe that it ever cost that. I tell them that very same thing. I tell them that penny candy actually used to cost a penny. Okay, with that, hearing no further comments, let's go ahead and proceed to the consent agenda. And the consent agenda are a list of items, by the way, just for the public, where there is agreement and no controversy on, and we pass them in one motion. Now, let me ask the members, is there any item on the consent agenda that a council member would like to remove for further discussion? And if not, do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Okay, now we'll move on to number 5, ordinances. First reading of an ordinance pertaining to 2024 routine budget adjustments. And Finance Director Barbara Lopez, who we heard from earlier, please go ahead and proceed.
Thank you, Mayor Castama. Just a brief introduction of the topic. This is the first reading of an ordinance that for some routine budget adjustments that we've already done this year. The budget adjustment totals $3.9 million. About 1 million of that is to carry forward some unspent 2023 project balances into 24 for spending on those projects. 1.8 million is in grants and other funding that you've already seen come through council. And then the remaining million adjusts our property and liability insurance premiums that we had to pay to WCIA that came to light early this year after the budget was adopted. So those are the routine budget adjustments that we are looking to have you approve with this ordinance. And I'm happy to answer questions.
Any questions? Okay, do we have a motion to approve the first reading of this ordinance?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Okay, now let's move on to resolutions. That's section 6 of the agenda. 6A, and we have people in the audience who've been waiting for this. I appreciate your patience. Again, we are going through quite a bit here because of that 1 month period. We have in 6A, a facility naming request of the council chambers lobby. And we're going to have Katie Baker. Please give a presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of Council, Katie Baker, Planning Manager. I have a very brief presentation for you tonight on this request. This is a request to name the council chambers lobby Candle Hall. This request was proposed by retired Lieutenant Colonel Jack Taylor in the audience today. I believe he came and spoke before you a few months ago with this request, and per the city policy, this request gets presented to our Design Review and Historic Preservation Board for their review and a public hearing and recommendation. And so it is that recommendation that I present to you tonight. But first, a little bit of information for you about Lieutenant Candle, for whom the lobby is proposed to be named. He was a World War II. He served in World War II and was killed in action in December of 1944. Posthumously, he received the U.S. Medal of Honor, as well as a number of other medals, Silver Star, Purple Heart, et cetera. Those are on the screen. He was a citizen of Puyallup and a graduate of Puyallup High School in 1939. So he was unfortunately killed only 5 years after his graduation. Per the city policy, we do have an adopted city policy that stipulates criteria for naming city parks, open spaces, facilities, and other monuments. The staff presented to the board, and the board concurred that the qualifying criteria in this request is that the person has received national recognition, and this name is proposed in honor of an individual who has made an outstanding contribution, and obviously was a member of our local community. This proposal is well supported by a number of different people, including Lieutenant Candle's family. He did have a son and grandchildren. The family does support this request, as well as veterans groups and legislative representatives. As I mentioned, this was presented to the Design Review and Historic Preservation Board. They held a public hearing and unanimously recommended that City Council approve this naming request, and the resolution is before you tonight. So with that, I can answer any other questions.
Any questions?
I was just going to move approval.
That's fine. Could I, before we do that, I would like to actually, it's outside of normal protocol, but I know that Jack Taylor is here and he's been a primary advocate. Jack, would you like to say a few words? This is a fairly significant thing to be done in the city of Puyallup.
It was a number of months ago, I appeared before this board, and then I learned that it needed to go to the design review, and we did that. And I point out to the council that the awarding of the Medal of Honor is such a distinctive honor that our nation bestows. And to learn that Puyallup had such a person in its history stands as a sterling example for not only the citizens, but among the citizen groups, the youth of this town. And that was my motivation basically all along, that his story and what he did and how we recognized him needed to be recognized. And it would stand as a lasting memorial, not only for the citizens, but for anybody that walks the streets of Puyallup. And that morphed into the idea of your lobby area becoming Candle Hall. I cannot imagine a higher honor for a city to recognize one of its own with such a distinctive memorial to this person. And it's received great support all the way along. My colleagues in the veteran community, our legislative representatives of the 25th district, and so many others. So I just hope that you will take the recommendation from the Design Review and Historic Preservation Board and sustain their approval of the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Appreciate that. With that, Councilmember Dorr, I believe you were going to make a motion.
Yes, I would like to move approval. And Jack, I just wanted to say I think you've been working on this since, I just looked in my email. I have an email from 2014. So congratulations on getting it this far. I know it was quite a process.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of this resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Okay, resolution passes. You're welcome. Thank you, Jack, for all your work. Thank you for all you do for this community. Now let's move on to 6B. We have before us the appointment of Councilmember Lauren Adler to the Pierce County Regional Council. And the reason we're bringing this forward now is because, and we changed the agenda, is there is business to be done in the next month. And Councilmember Adler and the current representative on there, Councilmember Ned Whitting, have come to an agreement that they think is beneficial for the community. With that, Councilmember Whitting.
Just a little background on this change. I have served on the Pierce County Regional Council for the past 4.5 years. And when we were looking at council assignments at the beginning of the year, I felt I had some work left to be done and wanted to continue that. And I figured it would take me about 6 months to bring that work to a conclusion. And I discussed at that time with Councilmember Adler, and we actually have two representatives on the Pierce County Regional Council. Deputy Mayor King is one, and I've served as one, but we also have an alternate position on the council, and Councilmember Adler has been serving in that capacity. So having reached the kind of the end of my work load there, I felt it was appropriate for me to step back and become the alternate and have Councilmember Adler step up to this new position, which she is greatly prepared to handle and well qualified to handle, and I feel we will represent us well. So I would like to move that we make those changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Whitting. I do want to commend you on your service. I know that you have frankly tried to bring some well thought out, common sense procedures to the Puget Sound Regional Council, and I appreciate your diligence in that. It's been very well respected. Councilmember Dorr?
So I just wanted to clarify a couple of things. We're saying Puget Sound Regional, but we're talking about Pierce County Regional, correct?
Correct.
Oh, I apologize. Did I say Puget Sound?
And so that leads into my next question. So you're just reading my mind.
Okay.
It's my understanding, Councilmember Whitting, that you are on a subcommittee for Puget Sound Regional, not Pierce County. Is that correct?
Negative. I'm not serving on any Pierce County Regional Council. I'm not serving as a representative of Pierce County Regional Council on any Puget Sound Regional Council committees.
Okay, I thought you were. Then that was my question: is if that seat went with
No,
the person or the entity? But
yeah,
okay,
I had served on 2 different committees for the Puget Sound Regional Council, but my tenure with both of those have come to an end.
okay. So I don't know if it's been seconded. I didn't, but if not, I will second.
Okay. Yeah, and I will be corrected. I hope. I'm sorry about that. If I did say that, whether that's a promotion or demotion, I have no idea. So with that, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Okay, opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Okay, now let's move on to other business. We're going to have under 7A, Meeker Festival Street Project Update. Eric, our Public Affairs Officer.
Good evening, Mayor Castma and Council. My name is Eric Johnson, City Public Affairs Officer, and I also, with me this evening is Craig Moore from Parametrics, who's co-project managing this with me, and also Nathan Polanski from MIG. I'm going to introduce Nathan in just a second, but just wanted to provide you with an update on the Meeker Festival Street project, some of the work that we've been working on since we last updated you in the spring, and hopefully we'll be looking to seek a motion from you to approve the preferred design concept for Meeker Festival Street this evening. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Nathan Polanski from MIG, who will take you through the presentation this evening. All right, Nathan.
Great. Thanks, Eric. Excited to be here tonight for our third and final presentation to council on the Meeker Festival Street project. As Eric mentioned, we are looking for approval of the preferred concept design to finalize our design documentation and prepare for the next phase of the project, which is engineering design. So as a part of tonight's presentation, we'll walk through and kind of remind you on the process and the outreach feedback that we've gotten over the last year. Walk through the preferred concept and kind of highlight the kind of hit the key highlights of it, and then kind of what's left to do to wrap things up. So as a reminder, this project was focused on developing a concept design, and really embedded in that process was a sort of robust community outreach process. And we're specifically talking about Meeker Festival Street along East Meeker between Meridian and 3rd Street Southeast. So that area within the red boundary is the project study area. And then we've highlighted the adjacent city properties into the north. One of the kind of important sites to the north of it is Cornforth Campbell redevelopment site that the city's working with a developer on kind of building that up. As a reminder, kind of the purpose of this project is really to provide a new flexible space for downtown events that can kind of adapt to community needs and build on the other great spaces that are downtown and provide something different from kind of, what's in Pioneer Park. Replacing aging utility infrastructure. So there are existing utility mains that need to be replaced and extended. And so this streetscape redevelopment provides an opportunity to provide that infrastructure. Encourage redevelopment and investment in downtown and really strengthen that connection to the Meeker Mansion site. So in terms of where we are in the process, again, kind of we're at the tail end of this project, kind of wrapping up the final concept design, which we hope to do in the next couple of months. This project started in kind of summer 2023, so just about a year ago, and the project started with some initial outreach with project stakeholders. And so that meant focus group meetings with downtown businesses and property owners, really focused on those businesses and properties adjacent to or near the project site. We also met with downtown organizations, the Chamber, PMSA, Meeker Mansion, and then other programming partners who are active in the community at the farmers market and other kind of events downtown to kind of really understand some of the kind of nuts and bolts of kind of infrastructure and things to consider for spaces from a public event standpoint. This process has also gone through a technical advisory committee we've met with 3 times. So we kind of met with them early on. There was a community-wide survey last fall. Over 900 people participated in a wide kind of the majority of those were residents of Puyallup and folks that had actually attended an event downtown in the last 6 months, which is great to have that participation. So that participation and kind of outreach really informed preliminary design concepts and kind of programming opportunities as we developed the design. Taking that feedback, we went back to the technical advisory committee and presented 3 preliminary design concepts. We also presented those to the adjacent businesses and downtown organizations that we met with the first time out. And then working with Eric, the project team advertised sort of for a broader public survey to get feedback on those 3 concepts. We had, again, great participation and really good positive feedback on each of the preliminary design concepts that was presented. From that feedback, we worked with the city's technical advisory committee, which is an interdisciplinary set of staff across departments and roles within the city to develop a preferred alternative and design. And so this is the preferred design that really focuses on a central plaza concept and the synergies between the Meeker Festival Street site and the mixed-use redevelopment that's sort of in motion for the Cornforth Campbell site. And so some of the key aspects of this project or this concept are that sort of central gathering space for events, really providing more pedestrian space, so narrowing the roadway where we could, providing more space for a sidewalk, more gathering spaces. You can see the amount of green on this street compared to the normal downtown streets that have, trees at intersections, but nothing in between. So really trying to bring more trees and planting areas to provide kind of a more enjoyable environment experience for people during events, both every day and during events. Reducing on-street parking. One of the things that we heard from council when we were here a couple months ago is really think about pulling back on-street parking more than we had done in some of the concepts and where we thought we were headed. So we tried to kind of dial that in and really preserve parking adjacent to existing businesses, but pull away parking where we could for those gathering spaces and planting areas that the community was very excited about. This concept also shows sort of some kind of different kind of paving accents and approaches, really highlighting that central gathering area, as well as the other gathering spaces at the entries to the street at near Meridian and on the east side near 3rd Street. Recognizing that an important part of this project is connecting kind of the east side of downtown to the west side and kind of making that stronger connection to the Meeker Mansion. You'll see at the intersection of Meridian, crosswalk and signal improvements and new high visibility crosswalks are part of that work. And then at the east side at 3rd Street, and this is more of a potential future opportunity, but making a future pedestrian connection across 3rd Street to the east side of 3rd and kind of closer to Meeker Mansion. And that's something that would need to happen as a part of a separate future project when that pedestrian demand has been generated. From a street cross-section standpoint, I mentioned the kind of narrowing of the road. And so the cross-section on the left shows the roadway being narrowed, 2 lanes, 2-way traffic, kind of from 12-foot lanes to 10-foot lanes. So you get 2 additional feet in the sidewalk area. This Festival Street doesn't have curbs, so it's a curbless street environment. You do see some curbs around planting areas, and that's something that through our conversations with Public Works and thinking about maintenance of planting areas and furnishing areas, providing those kind of curbs in specific areas to help with kind of parking patterns and preserving kind of city assets and infrastructure. The intersection or the cross section on the right shows a slightly wider roadway that's similar to what's out there today. That's to accommodate turning movements from the arterials, Meridian onto Meeker and 3rd Street onto Meeker, to maintain vehicular access for the kind of normal day use and kind of delivery. One of the things that we've been looking at and kind of from the early outreach conversations is what does this street look like from an event setup? And so this diagram shows one potential way to set up the street, kind of lining and kind of parking areas with tents and opportunities for food trucks. Street closures would happen on either end of the street, the east and the west end at Meridian and 3rd Street, and then also at 2nd Street Southeast. And the idea for the street closures is to have removable bollards that can be put out there by staff or by the kind of people who have reserved the street for the event, put them out at the street ends. And what we've started to do the coordination through our technical advisory committee with Central Pierce Fire. So we have make sure that the sort of access from an emergency standpoint is part of the design thinking as we move into engineering design. Here, the kind of central pink oval, that's kind of the central gathering space, and the 2 rectangles on the south of the 2nd Street intersection are potential stage areas. And so the one on the southeast corner, it's kind of diagonally pointing into that pink oval would be sort of the preferred location for that stage. One of the things that will need to be worked through during engineering design is there's a utility pole that's sort of smack dab in that corner. And so working with PSE to underground that infrastructure. We have some initial strategies to be able to make that happen. And we have a backup location should that not be workable. One of the things we've heard throughout the process is the importance of kind of evening and kind of event lighting for the kind of night conditions and kind of our long winter hours. And so there are several different ways that lighting has been incorporated. One is kind of continuing the pedestrian lighting that you have on downtown streets, providing electrical outlets and at street trees so that you can add string lights or provide uplighting to trees in the evening hours. And then also opportunities for overhead string lighting that can be kind of help accent entries into the street as well as that central plaza space. And again, those are things the overhead lighting is coordinating with Central Pierce Fire to make sure that we have height clearances for emergency access. I mentioned parking, so kind of there is a reduction by more than 50% of the on-street parking that's out there today, but we're trying to maintain parking adjacent to businesses and pair them in twos based on some case study interviews we've had with other agencies in the Puget Sound region, some of the lessons learned that they've had in terms of kind of right sizing parking spaces. One of the other things that is critical to maintain access to parking is reconfiguring the hill parking lot. And so restriping that so you can provide in and out access from Pioneer Avenue so that when Meeker is closed, people can still get into and access that parking. Trees and vegetation were something that the community we've kind of heard about is very important. There are kind of 3 different strategies that have been incorporated into the kind of tree and planting concept. And so one is kind of the welcome planting. And so bordering the ends of the festival street and at that central plaza, and sort of really building on those raised planting and sort of the decorative kind of higher maintenance plants that the city has out there during the summer months. And the idea of having some of those in raised planters talking with Public Works helps reduce the maintenance of those and the kind of long-term wear and tear. Along the block, really looking at sort of more hardy, durable plants, sort of evergreen, with a mix of tree species. So there's a variety of color and kind of activity throughout the year, kind of seasonally. And from a stormwater management standpoint, opportunities for integrating green stormwater to provide that water quality treatment from the roadway areas, which is a requirement of the kind of the reconstruction of the project. So all three of those sort of are part of the kind of overall sort of integrated kind of landscape design. So here are a couple of visualizations of what this concept plan looks like. For illustrative purposes only, you know, there's going to be details that get refined as we move through, but here you can see that central plaza intersection space with sort of some specialty paving and kind of highlights around that Second and Meeker. You can see this idea of kind of settings, some sort of a tall pole on that southeast corner to kind of have string lighting that kind of goes out over the central plaza, kind of the more street trees and kind of areas for gathering on street. And then during an event area, you can see how the design really starts to kind of carve into a little bit of the parking space that's underutilized today in the Hill lot. And so that provides an opportunity for a stage, an opportunity sort of for some art integration as a backdrop there. But you can kind of start to get a sense for how that might look during an event. And here's another visualization. This is looking east along Meeker, along the north frontage of Savory and Sweet. So here you can see, rather than having parking along the sidewalk in the foreground of this picture, you can kind of see this larger, kind of more established sort of like parklet type setting where you've got opportunities for some sort of special street furnishings, different than kind of standard furnishings that will be around in other places in downtown, and more opportunities kind of for the planting and street trees. And again, just kind of seeing that populated as more of an activated event use. So we are wrapping up a conceptual cost estimate based on the final concept design. We've done this a couple of times throughout the project, most recently to support the city's grant efforts with the PSRC grant that the city was successful in achieving, but we're going to be updating that for the final concept. We're working through some design report and documentation to make sure that the information that we've gathered through our technical advisory committee meetings, it's carried into the next phase of design. And the city is planning to advertise for engineering design as a RFP in late 2024. And that timing is kind of contingent upon getting the grant funding from Strickland's office. So that's what we have for tonight. Any questions or comments from you? And kind of, as kind of I mentioned at the start, what we're looking for is approval of the preferred concept so we can finalize the design documentation and kind of help prepare staff for the engineering phase of the project.
Okay, with that, Councilmember Dorr.
Thank you. I just have a question about the Hill Funeral Home. Did you get feedback from them? And I'm looking at this, I hadn't considered it before. I'm looking at your rendering. So the entrance to Hill is through where? And you know, a lot of time people have services on a weekend, which is the same time that we have a lot of festivals. So I'm just curious as to if they had concerns or what their input was.
So they have driveway access on 3rd, and that was not a property owner that we directly connected with during this process. I know we attempted to reach out to.
Yeah, so that's correct. So we had tried attempting to reach out to the Hill Lot Funeral Home, and we haven't heard from them throughout the process, but we can continue to have conversations with them moving forward.
Yeah, I just look, based on this rendering, it looks like there's a potential impact to them that I'm not sure how we address that. Do you guys have a backup plan in case there is?
So
I mean, I think
there's
project
no
is
change to the existing driveways on Meeker. So it would be during events And those would need to be coordinated with.
That's what I'm saying is that I know that a lot of people want to have their service on a Saturday.
Mhm.
And so that potential conflict of use there could arise.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions? Comments? Deputy Mayor King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple questions in regards to the types of trees that are going to be planted out there. Obviously, the trees that have been planted up and down Meridian have destroyed sidewalks and disrupted some path of travel
Yep.
through our downtown. Have we come to a conclusion on what kind of tree, how big they're going to be, and will the new trees ruin the new things that are going to be put in place?
Great question. So the first thing is providing adequate soil volume. And so by having those larger planting volumes or planting areas, you're providing adequate soil volume. All new street trees also go in with root barriers. So yes, thinking about soil volume for healthy trees and healthy sidewalks, also looking at the city's approved street tree list in terms of the right tree for the right places, and providing a mix of tree species so that looking long term, you're not concerned about sort of a disease coming in and sort of wiping out trees.
Got it. As far as the sidewalks that you mentioned, they're going to be curbless sidewalks. Is it going to be, are all the sidewalks going to be destroyed and redone in this project? Are they all going to be new? And how does a curbless sidewalk actually work? Is it just going to be flat and the streets raised? How does that work?
So yeah, the street gets raised up. So at either end of the street, cars will, during everyday use, will drive up a driveway ramp and enter a curbless street environment. All the planting areas will have a curb along them, so that will be there to help delineate.
Sure.
There's a runnel for drainage to provide that conveyance. Sorry, what was the other part of your question?
Nope, I'm pretty sure you got what I was looking for there. And then as far as the lighting you have here on the screen, I see that some of the string lights, and again, I get that this was conceptual and I'm just throwing this out there, but was the idea or intent or plan to attach these lights to the actual building, or will these lights be independently strung on independent poles so that way we don't endure any additional liability to buildings that are nearby?
I think there's, the opportunity for both. We've been meeting with the Cornforth Campbell redevelopment team, and we've discussed as this project moves forward, making sure the engineering team has regular meetings with them, and it'd be great to have that be part of the design documentation discussion with them. In other locations, it may need to be a separate pole. It might be a pedestrian light pole that's out there if you can get the height clearances, but that'll be kind of the detail to be figured out during design.
Because the only thing, and I think our city manager can also attest to this, just because of the information that we gathered with a previous lighting project that we accomplished last year. Something to consider is just the liability aspect. If we can do it and get away with it, great.
Yeah.
But from what we went through as far as trying to figure out how to go about attaching public lighting infrastructure to privately owned buildings, that might be something to consider. So just throwing that out there to keep it on your radar.
Yes.
Thank you. Great presentation.
Okay, further comments? Let me just add, I like it. And I think you can integrate some of the concerns that people may have. I think they're fairly, probably somewhat minor. Obviously, Councilmember Doerr's access question is pertinent. But I like it, and I know we received, I believe, $810,000 preliminarily, at least, from Councilmember Strickland that will go towards this project. And what did I say? Congresswoman Strickland, apologize. And we look forward to more grant opportunities, but I understand that for us to do that, we have got to get this pretty much, ferreted out with kind of more refinements that people can go ahead and fund and see actually what concrete things they're going to get. So with that, do you have enough information?
Yes.
Okay. Hearing no further comments, Eric, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, this evening we're seeking a motion from you to approve the conceptual design for the Meeker Festival Street.
Move
Oh.
approval.
Okay,
Second.
it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Okay, you have your marching orders.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. Okay, we're now going to just move into the section where we have reports by each of the members and by city officials. City managers report, please. Steve Kirkley.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'll be brief this evening. So your next meeting is August 20th. We're working on that agenda and we'll be doing so over the next couple weeks. Just as a reminder that the first ever Fusion Festival is going to be this Saturday. It's a city-sponsored event that the Main Street Association is putting on in Pioneer Park. It's on Saturday, July 21st, from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. in Pioneer Park. And there will be numerous bands and food trucks and other events. So it's a really neat event that will occur. And it was city-sponsored, initiated by City Council, actually, to provide some of the funding. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. With that, we'll go into council reports. We'll start at the far end with Councilmember Gilliam.
Thank you, Mayor Castema. I just want to second everything that City Manager Steve Kirkley just said, but also I thought I'd add a little something fun that the community should be aware of regarding Fusion Festival, and that is there is going to be something considered like an instrument petting zoo, where families can come, or people, anybody can come and put their hands on the different instruments that are going to be there. So I just thought that we should recognize that because that's very unique and wonderful. And other than that, I'm super proud of our city staff. I'm super proud of our citizens for voicing their opinions and helping us make the best possible decisions on your behalf, because we are here to support you. So I just wanted to say thank you, and I hope you all have a wonderful month. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Gilliam. Councilmember Whitting.
I'd like to report on a couple of committees I serve on. On the SHAPE, South Sound Housing Affordability, Attainability, Accessibility Partners, had a meeting this past week. We picked new leadership. Mayor Markley of Gig Harbor, who has been serving as chair, had to step down. So we selected Mayor Roscoe of Fife to serve as our new chair, and Councilmember Ballard from DuPont as the vice chair. We also had a presentation on universal design. This is something that involves designing homes and facilities for those that have disabilities. And it was a very interesting presentation, and hopefully we can pay attention to the work that's being done there and incorporate that in our comprehensive plan. There was also a discussion of the SHAPE Capital Fund, which has been established, and how those funds will be allocated. Now, the second committee I serve on is the Select Committee on Homelessness that had a meeting in the past week. There is a NOFA being put out for an amount of $1 million for somebody to help design a unified regional authority to work on homelessness throughout the county. There were 6 proposals have been received. The evaluation process has gone through its first tier. The top 2 applicants have been identified, and they'll be interviewed next week. And after that, those interviews have taken place, then the recommendations will be put before the county council for their approval. That is my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Dorr.
Thank you. Just a quick report on South Sound 911. We have our budget study session tomorrow. And we adopt our budget in August so that the jurisdictions can figure those rates into their budgets. The finance committee is recommending the police chief, Chief Ingalls, serves as the president of the Pierce County Police Chiefs. They requested some additional funding that the finance committee is going to recommend. If that gets approved, it will be an additional 56,410 off of Puyallup's allocation. Finance committee is recommending that additional $1 million contribution. I want to highlight, since we're not coming back until August 20th, the one Puyallup event that the police put on is August 28th from 6 to 8. And we have a new, I'm not gonna, the chief is turning red. We have a new Battle of the Badges contest that you should be watching for. And we'll put our police and firefighters into some fun as the community comes to expect. More on that one. I still have a few more details to work out, but that will be fun. Catfinade is open. Go see them. I'm super excited that they're here. I have not had the opportunity. I had a little bit of surgery and kind of a little bit have a bum limb today. And lastly, I don't know if Councilmember Johnson is still on there. I'm going to steal his thunder. Concerts in the Park Thursday is Randy Hansen, Jimi Hendrix tribute band. So, and thanks for all the presentations today. They were fantastic.
Thank you. Councilmember Adler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I would like to take a moment to talk about the events that happened in Pennsylvania on Sunday, and the attempted assassination on the 45th president. Saturday. What did I say? Sunday?
No, I think you got it correct. You said Saturday.
Interestingly, somewhat ironically, it was not until after our public meeting on the public safety building did I know what had happened or transpired or what was happening. And so when I came out of that meeting, it was quite jarring, as I am sure it was for all Americans, certainly those like me who have not lived through a presidential assassination attempt in my lifetime. I am reminded following the events on Saturday of the words of our Lieutenant Governor Denny Heck, who has focused on the importance of instilling respect between individuals who see the world politically differently. This is something he's been working on, civil discourse, for many years, but within the last year has become a top priority of his. He had wrote recently that the incapacity for civil dialogue is a serious disease of our body politic. Our current level of incivility is not normal. It is not inevitable, and it is not incurable. A 2018 poll showed that 93% of Americans in 2018 said incivility is a problem, and 69% of that 93 said that it is a serious problem. On average, Americans encounter incivility more than twice a day. This underscores the pervasive nature of rude behavior. I think it's probably a little bit more than just rude in everyday interactions, not just related to politics. As someone who has been involved politically and in government since I was 15 years old, Saturday made me feel sick on a lot of different levels, as I'm sure it has for all Americans. It was a very sad day in our nation's history, and we must answer to our better angels. We must. We are better than this. We should all be grateful that this attempted assassination was not just that, and that the former president has seemingly recovered well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Adler. I appreciate those comments. Deputy Mayor King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've been on this council for just over 2.5 years now. And some of the discourse that we've seen across our nation and other councils and other political venues makes me sick from time to time. And I am here to say that I am so incredibly honored to be behind this dais with all of my colleagues here, to be able to have civil discourse and civility behind this dais, and to be able to have conversation and for the betterment of our community. After the attempted assassination, I slept on it before I posted something to my socials over the weekend. And on Sunday, I'll just recite what I wrote so the public here has a full understanding of what I posted out there. As Deputy Mayor of the City of Puyallup, I am deeply committed to fostering a community where civility and respect are the cornerstones of our interactions. In recent times, we have witnessed an increase in polarized discourse and, unfortunately, instances of political violence across the nation. Let me be clear, political violence has no place in America. Our democracy is built on the principles of peaceful dialogue and the respectful exchange of ideas. Regardless of our political differences, we must remember that our shared goal is to work together for the betterment of our community and our country. Resorting to violence not only undermines these democratic values, but also jeopardizes the safety and well-being of our citizens. I urge all of our members of our community to engage in civil discourse, to listen to one another with open minds, and to remember that we are united by our common desire to create a thriving, safe, and inclusive society. Together, we can uphold these ideals that make our nation strong and ensure that Puyallup remains a place where everyone feels respected and valued. With that, ending on a higher note, it is my daughter's 14th birthday. Happy birthday, Kenzie. And I'll be home soon.
Thank you. Thank you for all those comments. I too appreciate each one of you and our ability to engage in discourse and still be friends, and add a discourse that we may find objectionable. That's one thing that I have found in the political realm. As you go beyond and get into more partisan politics, we seem to have lost that a tremendous amount. I am privy at times to a lot of information from a lot of my previous contacts as a state representative and state senator. I used to meet almost on a weekly basis with General Lohenberg, who was the head of the National Guards for the United States, and he briefed the President of the United States on a weekly basis. He would go back to Washington, D.C. And then, of course, I'm still very good friends with, let's say, the Secretary of State, Steve Hobbs, and he's in the National Guard, et cetera. And it's interesting how these individuals have told me, or tell me even now, that there are a lot of external forces that do try to divide all of us. I don't think we're really aware of all the forces out there through social media, et cetera, that purposely try to divide all of us and say we have nothing in common. And the fact of the matter is we may disagree on things, but we have more in common than we do have that's not in common. And we forget that message. And, people have asked me before, how do you increase discourse and respect? And a lot of it is just spending time with people you disagree with. I can give you an example of that. When I was in the state legislature, as a freshman Democrat, they put me on the Republican side because there were too many Democrats. And as I gained seniority, I could move back to the Democratic side, but I refused. every single time. And I sat, and I ended up being the only Democrat who consistently sat on the Republican side, but they were my friends. I knew their families. I knew their children. And what you find out in politics is so much of what we do is petty. It really is. I could give you examples that would really make you blush. But when a person is your friend, you don't do that to them. But so many of the things that are out there politically are impediments to us making those friendships. Thomas Friedman, the New York Times columnist and author of many different books, in fact, his staff called me and said, he's coming out to Seattle and he wants to meet with a couple of legislators like myself and ask us about how we were able to work across the aisle. And so I met with him in Seattle and he asked me, how do you guys do it? And I was kind of sheepish in what I told him. Frankly, I'll tell you exactly what I said. I said, I drink with the other side. I go out, I socialize with them. I get to know them. And when you get to know them, we have so much in common, just as people, as Americans, as citizens, world citizens. We have so much in common. And yet, I think so many people benefit from us being divisive. They really do. And there's a lot of external forces that cause that. So I think we have to be mindful of that and have our effort to reach off to people who we may think that we disagree with and try to form those friendships. I will say this, and I mean this very sincerely, I really enjoy working with every single one of you on this council. I respect you. I believe you sincerely want what is best for this community. And I respect that. And I like the fact that we do make disagreements at times, and then we just move on to the next issue. And I can hear your opinion because you represent a lot of the citizens in this community and their voice needs to be heard. And we have a representative form of government. And that's what your job is. So, by the way, July is Puyallup Unity Month. I don't know if the public knows that, but we passed a resolution where Puyallup, this is a Unity Month. We had the January 3rd, Red, White, and Kaboom. We had a big celebration for January the 4th. We started concerts in the park. And if you weren't there last week, it was really a wonderful event. Councilmember Dean Johnson did his fabulous emceeing. He gets out there and dance. If you want to see a council member dance, well, come to the concerts in the park. Dean's very famous for that. He really enjoys what he's doing. And of course, we have the Fusion event coming up on the 21st. But it's just a time to remind us that we are together in Puyallup. We're all in this together. All neighborhoods are in this together. All organizations. This is part of a very large ship, city of Puyallup. So with that, I will see you, all of you, almost exactly a month from now on the 20th of August. And I want to thank all the people of Puyallup for making this such a beautiful city that we all love. Thank you.